My name is Dale Bondanza. I've spent my last 30 years in the information technology industry in a variety of fields, including pharmaceuticals, manufacturing, medical device, physical security, financials, education, and many others thanks to an extensive consultative career. This is the second video that I've produced in a series of videos that I'm producing about IT leadership. My first video was on my personal philosophy surrounding IT leadership in the post-pandemic era. And today's video will be my review of my perspective on branding yourself as an IT leader from a self-marketing perspective. So there'll be a lot of talking today. I'll try to keep it brief and stick to the points. There's probably only one picture that I may show during the presentation. But I'll do my best to describe my brand and the components of my brand and what you should consider when you're developing your brand. I'll offer a significant amount of background on myself because to understand the focus of my brand, you need to understand me. I say this because it's critical for your brand development. Your brand is everything that makes you, you. You can't fake your brand. So today, we're going to talk about some of the things that I mentioned in my previous video. And if you haven't watched that, I recommend you watch that one first, because when I use some of the acronyms like PPT plus C, you'll understand where that comes from if you've watched that previous video. So I'll also give some additional insight on how I accomplish what I set out for the typical leader in the previous video. And this model is not for everyone, but I found this method is my niche to solving the challenges we face in a modern day IT shop. Some may disagree with some of my comments, but I will try to preface all of them with a little background on myself first. So first, we talk about IT leadership. So let me address the highest level of the IT organization, the chief information officer or the chief technology officer, CIO or CTO type position. Oftentimes, organizations may not have that actual title. It may just be a director of IT or a VP, vice president of IT. But whatever the head of the technology group is, what you have to understand is once you're in that position or once you're at that level, even if you're in a much larger organization where you're not necessarily the head of the IT organization, you're not necessarily the CIO or the VP, but you're still a senior or executive leader in that technology organization. What you have to understand is that once you're at that level, once you're at the pinnacle of your profession or your department, everyone's on the same plane. So if the CIO is talking to the chief financial officer, the CFO, or the chief operating officer, or the chief marketing officer, or the chief HR officer, you don't need to say that you're at that level because everybody knows what skill set you bring to the table. What you need to do is you need to embody the fact that you are the titular head of the organization. The IT leader, and if that's you in this case, the IT leader has forgotten more about technology than everyone else in the room put together will ever know. At the highest level of the organization, you as a technologist, you have no equal. The buck stops with you. And when you're right, you were right because your team helped you be right. But when you're wrong, it falls squarely on your shoulders. Again, that's where the perspective of the buck stops with you comes from. So again, as I said earlier, let me give a little background on myself. This helps kind of put things in perspective. So Dale Bondanza, I was born and raised in Buffalo, New York. Don't hold that against me. I am one of a handful of the remaining Buffalo Bills fans, so thank you for that. I did my undergraduate degree in Rochester. I'll talk more about that in a second. I moved from Rochester, New York, back to Buffalo for about a year after college, before I relocated to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania at the time. This is back in the early 90s, and spent most of my adult life in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Before I moved up to New Jersey around the 2010 timeframe, I moved up to North Jersey for about 2 years. and realized where I didn't want to spend the rest of my life. So no offense to those who live in Jersey today. But after about 2 years in New Jersey, a recruiter called one day and asked me if I'd like to come to Florida. And I said, you know, how quickly would you like me there, and how much of a pay cut do I have to take? Because I knew I was going to have to take one. So that's what got me here to Florida and where I am to this day. I am on a personal level. I am the youngest of 5 boys, so decent sized family. My mom passed away about 5 years ago, but my dad is still living independently on his own near one of my brothers in San Antonio, Texas. My father is 97 as of the time of me recording this video. So again, living independently, so that's a good sign, great genes in the family. I'll show you a brief picture. I will do you that that much to show. Obviously, you can see me on the screen now, but let me flip over for just a brief moment. There we go. So yes, 1972. Look at that cute little cherub right there. That's me. That's one of 5 boys. A mere 27 years later, all of those boys grown up. And my parents right there in the center. This happened to be their 50th wedding anniversary. And then more recently, and we'll talk about how that transformation came between this Dale from pre-Y2K to where we are today. So I'll stop sharing so I can go back to my video. As I mentioned earlier, I've been in IT my whole life. So I've literally been in IT since the age of 16. Yeah, I know that's almost like 40 years. That's a long time. And I say 16 because I was actually asked by my high school trigonometry teacher to substitute teach his after school adult education class on programming in the basic language on Apple IIe's. So yes, I was teaching other adults at the age of 16. That's why I consider the fact that I started in my technology career almost 40 years ago. I mentioned earlier that I went to Rochester for my undergraduate. My undergraduate is a bachelor's of science from Rochester Institute of Technology, where I had a major in computer science and a minor in both psychology and business. When I moved to Philadelphia, that's when I got my MBA. I got my MBA from St. Joseph's University in Management Information Systems and E-Business. I wrote a capstone thesis during that time, which was published in a graduate textbook on cases on worldwide e-commerce theory and action. Beyond my formal education, I also have multiple certifications, including my project management professional from the Project Management Institute. I have my certified Six Sigma Green Belt from Villanova University. I have my certified Scrum Master from the Agile Institute. Beyond my professional life, and again, this is important to understand me and my brand, I also have a lot of personal certifications. So I'm a level 1 certified running coach from the Roadrunner Club of America. I'm actually an ordained minister through the Universal Life Church. I spent 17 years of my life as a volunteer firefighter and EMT. So I have multiple areas of certification within life safety and rescue, not the least of which is I am a hazmat, hazardous materials technician. I'm certified in advanced water rescue, advanced vehicle rescue on automobiles, trains, and planes. I'm confined space rescue certified. I'm certified as a forestry firefighter, and I spent 12 years as an emergency medical technician in New York and Pennsylvania. I started my career in technology as a developer, programmer, worked my way into various capacities in IT, including being a business analyst, a QA analyst. I worked as a technical leader. However, I found the niche of project management early in my career, and that's what propelled me into the world of project management offices, including program and portfolio management, which eventually led to strategic IT development. This included opening my own company, DAB Enterprises, LLC, back in 2004, where I actively consulted until about 2010 before I decided to rejoin corporate America. Also important for understanding my brand and explains the picture that you saw on the previous share. At the age of 41, I had a health epiphany, and it sent me on a very specific adjustment to my life and my health, quite frankly. So during that time, I changed I made a major change to my own personal life, pretty radical. It led me to publishing a book on weight loss that I titled 60 and 6, Everything Your Mother Told You to Do. And that also propelled my career as a competitive runner and fitness fanatic after that. So I talked about, I've been in IT for my entire post-collegiate career, which is about 30 years on the professional side. I've worked for more than 30 companies, from mom and pop type companies to Fortune 10 companies. However, most of them were classified as large companies. That is over $1 billion in annual revenue. Why so many companies? Well, about 40% of my career has been in a consultant role. So either for my own company or for other folks. So that's about 12 of my 30 years. In those 12 years, I worked for multiple companies simultaneously. So 30 really isn't that many in the grand scheme of a consultant's life. Working with and for so many companies, however, did give me the chance to see how many organizations get it right and how they get it wrong. I've interfaced literally with tens of thousands of people over my career. And as a result of that, plus my early education, both formal and informal, I've learned a thing or two about people. So this was all to say, this was all a setup for the remaining few minutes of this video that focus on the individual points you should develop as your brand, with the basis of the fact that technology equals change. Technology equals change, which equals growth, and technology equals change that equals growth, and that equals scary for most people. So once you understand, as a head of technology, that tech equals change, it equals growth, and it's scary for a lot of people, you understand why it's important for you to develop your own personal brand. A familiar approach of mine is what I call my cube philosophy. That is, when I go into a new organization, whether it's in a consultative capacity or as a full-time senior or executive information technology individual, I go in with that classic project, program, portfolio approach that I spoke about earlier. And that evolves into what I often refer to as almost a chief of staff type role. So the cube philosophy means I initially look at an organization and I look at it from a project management perspective, project management office perspective. I review the current projects that they have for the upcoming fiscal year, for the next fiscal year. I make sure and I review to document all their current and future roadmaps to see where they stand today. If they don't have one, I'll make sure that I interject a project development life cycle, including organizational change management that comes with that. We'll socialize that roadmap among the other executives. We'll develop an IT leadership team that's within IT. So that should be developed of the senior or executive staff within IT. And then we'll also develop an information technology steering committee, or an ITSC, that will be involved of just one or two of the most senior folks in IT, as well as your counterparts, customers from across the organization. We'll also look at your organization from a vendor management perspective. We will hope, or we will try to persuade the organization to focus on 6 to 10 strategic vendors that will help you with staff augmentation. They'll help you with offshoring. They'll help you with your ERP, your enterprise resource planning tool, and your overall strategy as an IT organization. We'll look at your IT organization from a controllership perspective, that is, from a budget and a forecast perspective. We'll look at your IT organization as a consummate consigliere. So that is, who's representing the head of IT from a legal perspective, and making sure that everything is counseled correctly. That's why when you embody a project philosophy, a vendor philosophy, a financial philosophy, and a legal philosophy, that's why these things often develop into what I, again, have often referred to as that quasi chief of staff type role, sometimes referred to as a solutions or an enterprise architect. So while the CIO's focus should be PPT, as explained in my previous video, I execute my personal mission. And this is Dale's personal mission. I strive to help companies obtain their next tier of success despite the forces set against them, through a militant focus on people and culture. So if you're taking notes, personal mission, that's the first thing you should write down. I execute this mission while maximizing the effectiveness and efficiency of their technology, guaranteeing an upward trajectory of the organization. So I mentioned a key point there, fixing culture / people. That's not a quick fix. It takes time. How much? Depends on the overall leadership and thus the culture of the organization. Within the IT vertical and the mission above, I focus these areas as my overarching brand. So my brand, which is, again, as mentioned in the previous video and reiterated here, people, process, technology, in that order, don't get it wrong. That's my core philosophy. That's my core brand. Within the context of that brand, there's a lot of areas that I feel that are important that I bring to the table within that brand. So when I think about people, process, and technology, that includes things, especially in our post-pandemic world, like real estate. Real estate seems like an odd topic. Real estate, as it refers to your hybrid organization of the future. Are you remote? Is your company going to be 100% in the cloud in the future? I talk about the talent gap that we have. As you know, depending on how long this video lasts, it's being recorded in 2022, but the talent gap for the last several years and the foreseeable future is going to be significant in the technology industry. Here in 2022, we're dealing with a multi-generational workforce. That doesn't seem to be changing, at least in the next 10 to 15 years. So that is to say, currently, we have 4 generations, including boomers, we have Gen X, we have Gen Y, also known as the millennials, and we have Gen Z, also known as the Zoomers. Within the next 15 years, we'll see the 5th generation, the Alpha generation. Those are the kids that are literally just entering kindergarten as of today. So today we have 4 generations of folks in the workforce, and they all operate very different from a culture and a personal perspective. We talked about culture. Another aspect of my overarching brand of people, process, and technology is cybersecurity. Has obviously become increasingly important over the last several years and will continue to be. You have to worry about in IT being green. Green typically refers to things like your printing capacity or other green initiatives within technology or the organization that you're within. We talk about physical security, almost as important as cybersecurity. We talk about scaling the organization. We talk about being lean and agile. These are all things that filter into that overarching brand. So again, if you're taking notes, the second aspect, I mentioned mission on the previous screen. The second thing that you have to be cognizant of is what are your individual superpowers? So for those who are not fans of the various shows from Superman to Spider-Man to The Flash, everybody, you as a leader have your own superpowers. Only you know what they are. Personally, one of my superpowers is I have the ability to bring chaos into order. So that is to say, when I look at a situation and I look at how chaotic it is, one of the things that I can do is quickly make adjustments to bring order to that chaos. Another one of my superpowers, and again, these should obviously be somewhat tongue-in-cheek as a leader, but the second one, my second superpower is that I tell folks that I'm multilingual. So that can take on a lot of facets. Now, if you really are multilingual, if you speak more than your native mother tongue, in my case, that would be English. If you happen to speak additional languages, French, German, Italian, Cantonese, etc., that's great. But when I say I'm multilingual, what I mean by that is I speak the 6 languages of business. So that is to say, I speak finance, I speak legal, I speak procurement, I speak human resources, I speak marketing, and obviously I speak technology. But most importantly, I can translate in between all those languages. So it's important to understand when you're speaking to your CFO or your general counsel or your head of procurement or your chief people officer or your chief marketing or sales officer. It's important to understand the language and jargon that they use in their departments, in their organizations, in their professions, and be able to translate that between your tech or geek speak and their language. So that's what I mean when I say my two superpowers are bringing order to chaos and being multilingual. The third aspect of your brand is your vision. My vision happens to be crawl, walk, run, keep it simple, metrics, and planning. So that vision, those four things, is how I execute my mission. The fourth aspect of my brand is my principles. My principles that surround my core philosophy include the fact that business drives IT. You should focus on process first. You should focus on accountability. You should focus on compliance, partnerships, synergies, organizational structure. Always have a business first, technology second attitude, and a global perspective. The fifth aspect of my brand that I'd like to talk about is a day in the life of. Everyone should be able to describe a day in the life of themselves as a senior leader. In IT, when people ask me, or let me back up a half a second. When people ask me, so Dale, what do you do for a living? My usual response, and again, there's a bit of humor in this, but I think any of us that are in either senior IT or just senior leadership positions in general can relate to my response. That when people ask me what I do for a living, I say, well, I'm a cat herder. I am a firefighter. I am a ego massage therapist. I am a plate spinner. I am a consensus builder. I am a circus juggler. And oftentimes I am a Jedi. And that's a little bit of a Star Wars joke in there. But Jedi, Jedi, stands for just effing do it. And that's often what we're charged with as leaders is, I don't care what it takes, just effing do it. That makes you a Jedi. So that day in the life of, that was another critical component of developing your brand. You know what you do on a day-to-day basis, and you have to be able to articulate that. So this mission, vision, philosophy, principles, these are all accomplished by brutal honesty, 100% transparency, communications, and extreme empowerment and ownership. We'll talk about that in a future lecture as well. So why do I preach this focus for IT leaders? Because, as we said earlier, technology equals change, which equals growth, which equals scary. The last part of your leadership brand should include the development of some core stories. Some core stories that should shine a light on any of the areas that you spoke about previously or any of the above components of your brand. So that's it. I'm going to show you, I'm going to share my screen one more time because I'm going to show you the actual slides that I've been referencing, because this is actually a great slide from a closeout perspective. So here's my summary slide. So in summary, know yourself. And to know yourself, you have to be brutally honest. You have to understand your background, where you came from, what got you to this point in life, what your influences are. Your brand consists of your mission, your vision, your principles, your superpowers, a day in the life of, and your core stories. I cannot give you or make your brand. Only you can do that. But these are the elements you should incorporate to create your brand. So let me stop sharing now. And that's how we're going to wind up this video. So thank you all very much for attending today. I appreciate it, and I hope to talk to you again soon.